It's true, bamboo bedding is dreamy to sleep on. That's why Quince aptly named their Bamboo Dream Quilt Set. Coming in 12 colors, you're absolutely going to love this quilt and 2 shams set. Starting at the softest of pinks and going all the way to a dark navy. It's going to be perfect for anyone's room. Your own, your guest rooms, your kids' rooms, maybe even back to the dorm bedding. Quince has everything you need to elevate your space, from bedding to soft organic towels, airy curtains, and premium kitchen tools designed for everyday use. And of course, as you know, Quince has gorgeous cashmere and other wardrobe essentials. And the best part, Quince's products are half the cost of similar brands. They partner with top artisans and cut out the cost of the middleman, passing the savings on to us. Thank you, Quince. And they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, so you can feel good about your purchases from Quince. Elevate your space with home essentials from Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT.
What is the unsung hero of design? Hi, I'm Anita Joyce here with Kelly Wilkness, and this is Decorating Tips and Tricks. And today we are talking texture. Texture is an important part of design that I really don't think it's discussed enough or appreciated enough, because it really does make a big impact on a room. And if it's there, you don't really necessarily notice when it's done well. But if it's missing, then the room can really feel off and you just might not even know why.
That is so true. Yes, you might not be like, hey, look at that texture.
You don't usually comment on it.
Yeah, but when it's missing from a room, it's palpable. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't know or wouldn't recognize that that would be a pretty easy solution. So we're going to give you all kinds of ideas and tips and advice today on how to decorate with texture, how to add it in, how to maybe do more of it if you're not doing enough of it. There's this thing about texture. Your eye loves texture. It actually allows you to feel it without touching it. Your eye can discern the texture, the movement, the material, and it's very pleasing. You know, if you had a room where everything was a flat, smooth surface, your eye kind of doesn't know where to land. It's kind of sliding all over the place, but the texture really grabs you. So it's such an important element. I love how you kicked off the episode, Anita, because it is the unsung hero of decorating.
That's right, because it's not really something people tend to walk in a room and talk about. Boy, doesn't this room have great texture? But it does have an impact on the room. And, you know, it can really make a room look soulless if you don't have it.
Right. It's creating dimension, interest, layers. And it does so much for a room that already has color and pattern. Just because you have color and pattern doesn't mean you should not have texture. You should most indeed have texture in all your rooms. But wow, what it can do for a neutral room.
Yes.
Yeah. It will make or break a neutral room.
If you don't have color in a room, then you better have a lot of texture or the room is going to completely look flat. So that 100% is true.
So there's a lot of different types of texture. Some are very, very obvious, like a jute rug or something like that. And I think Anita's going to lead us off with rattan and maybe rattan and wicker, because that is really got a ton of texture and it's just so appropriate for this time of year.
I love rattan. Let me just say that. And, you know, we recently had an episode about the Nancy Meyers look, and texture, as you know, Kelly, is such an important part of her look. And she definitely does use rattan in there. So there are so many ways to add rattan. It's such a fun thing. You're right. It's perfect for summer. It's perfect for where I live, where it's just very hot so much of the year. It just feels tropical and cooling to look at the rattan furniture. It's casual, but it can be very elegant at the same time. I think rattan dining room chairs are just some of my absolute favorites. And yes, they look casual, but they add just texture and beauty to the room. And I just recently bought the most beautiful rattan chairs. I'm going to include the link to the ones that I purchased. But the thing about this room is the room really was kind of boring before I bought these chairs. And I knew I was going to change out the dining room chairs, but when I put these new chairs there, I couldn't believe how different the room felt. It went from kind of skimpy to very luxurious looking and inviting. These kind of remind me of chairs you might see in kind of an Edwardian resort, maybe, with, you know, where the moneyed people would summer. I mean, that's kind of what I think of when I see the chairs. They're really, really very pretty. Or what about rattan side tables, coffee tables? I've even seen some beautiful rattan bar carts. There's so many beautiful pieces. I'm going to include a link to a beautiful rattan bar cart, and then I have one I found that's a side table that has scalloped edges on the top and a shelf below that's really lovely, and one of those console tables, I know you've seen them, Kelly, that are scalloped, where it almost looks like you took rattan and draped it over and it's flowing like fabric. Have you seen those?
Oh, yeah. Those are fabulous. I wish I could work something like that in, but I just don't have the room. I think it's perfect for an entry area. They're beautiful. I think rattan, it just gives this instant relaxation and playfulness. And so I do love to include it, as it sounds like you might be doing, in a more formal space, like a dining room, or with more formal pieces, like some antiques and things like that. It sort of knocks off the formality a bit and it creates that good tension that we talk about. Another thing that you can do with rattan is, sure, it comes in the natural color, and lots of times there's a poly varnish on it or something like that, but you can paint it a different color. So you're still getting the visual appeal of the rattan and the feel of it and the juxtaposition of it against maybe an antique dining table or something like that. But the color is making it a little less tropical in a sense, and also a bit more playful, even if you're doing a vibrant color. I've done some rattan pieces that I've just picked up along the way, thrift stores, whatnot, and I'm still in my matte black spray paint phase that has been lasting quite a while, but I have a few pieces that I spray painted in the matte black, and it changes the character of the rattan, and it makes it a little bit more of a statement, certainly if it's against a white wall or something like that. Recently, I took a really gorgeous carved chair. It was like a one-off that the gentleman who lived here before had just left for us, and it's a beautiful chair. It's got these carved eagles on the top, and it's a real statement chair, but there's only one of them, and it's not comfortable. It's just really cool to look at, and I had it on my entryway for the longest time, and it just seemed like there was too much wood in there with the wood floor and the wood chair, and it didn't have any sort of upholstery on it, and I swapped it out with this rattan chair that I had spray painted matte black, and wow, it did so much for the entry. It really changed the feel of it, and yeah, it did exactly what I was saying. It kind of knocked off the formality of some of the other pieces and made it a little bit more approachable, and just the different lines, it's a little bit of a softer feel. I'm really loving it there.
Also, think about these smaller pieces that are going to be much more affordable. Rattan baskets are wonderful. Rattan trays. What about napkin rings, placemats? I have some beautiful rattan placemats and even chargers. I think we may have the same plate chargers, Kelly, that are rattan.
I feel like we do.
Yes. Yeah, so there's so many beautiful pieces. I actually included a link to some serving trays that I'm thinking about buying that are rattan, that are really pretty. Another thing to think about when you're thinking about rattan is think of it like wood furniture, a brown wood furniture. It's a neutral, so don't worry about matching the color. That's not important. It really is seen as a neutral. And yes, there was a time, not that long ago, when gray was very hot, that it was hard to work in these warm colors like brown wood and all this rattan. But, that time is over. So the grays are, I mean, it's still, if you do it well, I think you can still get some gray furniture and some warm gray wall paint. But other than that, I think we are not trying to match those cool grays anymore.
So have you tried Dupe yet? If you haven't, come on, dupe.com. It is going to be your new shopping best friend. And it's not just for furniture. I know I've shared with you about my coffee table dupe, but you can save money with Dupe on fashion, shoes, jewelry, and more. I just used Dupe to find an absolute perfect twin of this t-shirt that I wanted. It was an $80 t-shirt. I was not going to pay $80 for a t-shirt. Dupe helped me find the twin, like maybe the exact same shirt. Find something you love, and then you can find replicas, twins, and maybe the exact thing for so much less. Give Dupe a try today. It is really so easy to use. You just type dupe.com / before any product URL in your browser, and voila! It instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you can download. No account is required. No sign up is required. It is completely free. I know, can you believe it? But it is completely free to use. Stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. Dipped into a little bit of the history. I love the little backstory on everything. So rattan, it comes from the climbing palm vine. And when it initially came onto the scene in the 18th century-ish time, 19th century, it was super expensive because this climbing palm vine only grew in tropical areas. And so, of course, it had to be grown and then made into something and then imported and all of that. So it was something probably all the Victorians, were all the rage for. And then there was a company that started making it stateside, and it became a lot more reasonable and prolific. And rattan had a really big surge in the 50s. And that's kind of when you were seeing it in a lot of more mid-ranged households and things like that. It wasn't for the super wealthy anymore. And then, of course, rattan, wicker, bamboo, all that really came on strong in the 70s, but had that different sort of boho feel to it, which was very different than the vibe that was coming out of the 1950s rattan. So it was kind of interesting to see the progression of rattan and how it's come back and gone away and come back. But as we always say, something comes back, but it comes back a little bit different, right? And that's exactly what happened with the history of rattan. So, and it's stronger than wicker, as you can tell if you pick up a piece. It's a sturdier, so probably better for a maybe a looser created chair where maybe there's not as much woven material. It will stand up a little bit more. Usually when you see something wicker, lots of times the back of the chair is solid because the material itself is not as strong.
That's very interesting, and you're right. It was much more expensive, like so many things back in the day before they kind of figured out how to mass produce things and make things much less expensive during the industrial age. So things have definitely changed as far as prices go. Another thing I'm seeing that has lots of wonderful texture are raffia wrapped dressers. Have you seen those? Or wrapped side tables?
Serena and Lily have those. They're beautiful.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, I have a piece in blue that's from Nautica, but you're right. They do have those. They're really beautiful. And if you don't know what we're talking about, it looks like grass cloth almost on the piece. And they're really pretty.
Are you worried about wear and tear on that at all? I mean, does it have a glass top or something? I would always be really concerned about enforcing the coaster rule. Really?
Well, that's a good point. But it's in a part of the house that really is rarely used, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, that might be an issue. Good point.
So we've covered a lot about rattan, but there are items that you may not even consider as quote unquote texture. So let's just run through a list of those. Grass cloth wallpaper. Yeah, that's texture in a room, right? Mm-hmm. Wicker anything, a lampshade, a sconce shade, even the tiniest little something is going to add this texture that you really desperately need in a room. Anita mentioned some rattan trays, any type of woven tray chunky throws, the rush seats on a counter stool or on chairs, of course, pillows of all sorts. So in your mind's eye, if you picture a silk pillow or a polyester pillow cover or something like that, or even like a very simple cotton duck cloth or just flat cotton, it's not a whole lot of texture. But then if you had a boucle pillow, or you had one made out of an old Irish fisherman's sweater, which were super popular for a while, there's one end of the spectrum of texture in a pillow, and then the other end would be a plain duck cloth cover.
Well, and I think what you're really pointing out, Kelly, is that we're not saying one specific texture or it needs to be rough to the touch, but that it needs to be varied. There needs to be lots of different textures. So if you've got smooth, you need some rough. If you're using one type of fabric, don't use just one type of fabric in a room. Use several, because you want those textures to vary.
Texture mixing is another thing you should be considering. You can incorporate both in your collection of pillows, but if you are going completely neutral, or you like your pillows to be solid, you definitely want to be adding some texture in your pillow collection that you've got on your chairs or your sofas or what have you. Brushed metals is also a form of texture. So there's a lot of different degrees of it. Even the visible grain of wood to your eye is texture. So all of these things will add up to creating a lot of interest in the room because of the varying degrees of texture that you have incorporated in your design.
One of my favorite ways to add texture to a room are to add bamboo shades. And we are not alone in loving bamboo shades. I think a lot of decorators and designers prefer them over so many other things that you can use. And it seems like the most common thing I see are mini blinds or the faux wood blinds. And, you know, Kelly, I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they can look mass-produced and uninteresting. So if it's in your budget, I think I would really look to some bamboo shades, because they're going to add warmth to the room, but they're also going to add texture. You can get them lined or unlined. And I like them unlined and have that dappled light coming in if that's an option. But if you need more privacy, and I will tell you with bamboo shades, because I've worked with a lot of different kinds, some have more privacy than others. So some you're just going to have to line, whereas others you don't have to, and it still blocks a lot of what people can see looking in. So I think this is just a great way. And just like those rattan chairs changed our dining room, I think that changing out mini blinds for bamboo shades could make a massive change to a room.
Well, they add texture for sure. The light filtering I love, and I find them to be fairly reasonably priced. And of course, you could go as high end as the shade store and get bamboo shades, but you don't have to. You can really get a deal on some of the bamboo unlined without all the bells and whistles.
And I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the fabrics and the rugs too, because just like you said, go with different fibers. Wools, cottons, linens, silks. I mean, I really recommend sticking with those natural fibers as much as possible, because, again, your eye can see those fibers. It makes a difference. If you use natural fibers, it's going to have a different look. And if you put a synthetic fabric next to the real thing is just going to look better. So if you can go with that, I definitely recommend that. And it's going to have a kind of a richer feel to it. You can use linen pillows, velvet curtains, cotton throws, wool rugs. I mean, just all this stuff, the different materials just work so well together. And then on your rugs, yes, you can go with cotton or wool, seagrass, jute, sisal. There's so many different options for the rugs, so many different ways to add wonderful texture underfoot.
And another way to create that great tension that we talk about and the highs and the lows is to pair these bamboo shades that we're talking about with some gorgeous draperies. Oh. That is a really high-end look.
Absolutely. And as we've said, there's so many places that you can get wonderful curtains for not that much money. Now, they may not be super cheap, but compared to custom curtains that might be $2,000, you might be able to find a couple of panels for $100 a piece. A lot of times you can find something on Amazon or your favorite half-price drapes. So there's lots of wonderful places to get ready-made curtains that are going to work beautifully for you without having to have them custom made.
And another perfect place to add texture. If you're thinking about doing some draperies, some people think, oh, I want to do sheers because I really want the light to come in. But, maybe if you want the light to come in that much, so maybe you don't need to close them if privacy is not an issue. I wouldn't do a sheer. It doesn't look like much hanging there. And so do something that's got some texture to it, some heft to it. Or if you've got something that's really simple and feels rather smooth, either visually or actually to the touch, add some trim to the bottom. Do a really interesting bullion fringe or something on the bottom. Just want to reiterate, you don't have to just be thinking about rattan and wicker and jute and sisal and all that. Remember all the other things that we talked about. And then talking about the wicker and rattan just a little bit more. It's better to have simple classic shapes. I do love a little scallop, and maybe you want that on a little piece. I actually have a bowl I'm going to talk about towards the end of the episode today that's got a slight scallop to it. And I know Anita mentioned that console table, it's kind of looks like a material drape. So it's got this kind of movement to it, this wave to it a little bit. That's all great. You don't want to go overboard with that. And if you remember back to the 70s, if you have seen photos of those bygone days, you might remember that there were peacock chairs and the wicker was very ornate. The chairs had swirls and curly hues and all of that. For now, unless you really just want to do a spot of whimsy in a room, I would stay away from those really ornate shapes. Although I did recently watch Architectural Digest tour of Lenny Kravitz's home in Paris, and it's to die for. And I do like to watch Lenny, no matter what he's doing. But he's touring you around his home, and in his dining room, which is very sleek and lots of lacquer and marble, the two host chairs at the end of this very long table are peacock chairs and wicker.
Oh,
now,
how fun.
Yeah, it works in that room. So if you want to see where a peacock chair might work, have a look at that video and we can link that in the show notes. One thing I want you to stay away from and do not use as texture. Okay, we rarely give you a just real bright line of what not to cross. Do not use those balls that used to be sold in every store. And then you'd see them in TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and they would come in some plastic container, and there would be like 12 of them or 18 of them of various sizes.
Oh, they're like wicker.
Yes.
Those?
And sometimes there was a color one thrown in. And even sometimes I think they smelled like something, like a potpourri situation. Those are so done. Those are, just goodbye to those, please.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that one. I was wondering what it was. I'm like, oh, where are we drawing this bright line? What am I being drawn into? I'm like, okay, I can go along with that one.
Yes, yeah. So do you have any items you want to talk about?
Well, I actually, when working on preparing for this episode, I thought I'm going to take a look around my living room and see what different kind of textures I have in here, because I just thought that would be interesting for me to kind of look at that, because, it's not something I always think about front of brain. It just kind of happens, but I don't know that I'm purposefully doing it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so here's what I found in my living room.
Oh, I love this.
Okay, so a wool rug, linen slip covers, velvet curtains, velvet pillows, bamboo shades, chinoiserie metal planter. There were some moss balls, but they weren't wicker in the planter. Wool killam ottoman, shagreen coffee table, stone fireplace, a plaster kind of column side table, metal folding side tables, wood armoire, wood floors, shiplap walls that are painted. a sisal rug, a wicker basket, a large demijohn glass bottle, plants, brass pookie lamp, some pleated lampshades, antique books with cloth covers, woven cotton throw blankets, and porcelain plates and dishes. So there you go.
That sounds absolutely beautiful. And I love that you included things that have smooth texture as well, because that is a texture. And I love that you mentioned stone, because we didn't have that on the list before. So stone, brick, all of that is going to be adding texture to your space. Okay, so I have a couple of items that I pulled out. Simple, fairly inexpensive, that would really be beautiful in any space. A glossy woven rattan vase. I love this piece.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's
doesn't
really
hold water very well though, right?
Well, here's what I'm thinking, that you would slip in a glass.
No, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on Amazon, and the pictures are so bad. They have some like plastic tulips in them. So just kind of don't look at the tulips. I think it would be so pretty on its own. Sometimes I cut some boxwood and I want to put it in something that doesn't hold water well. I just don't put it in water. I got a lot of boxwood. It's okay. So you could do that, or just slip in a glass. So I do want to tell you that the mouth of this vase is 4 inches. So you'd have to have a glass that could go in that was only 4 inches wide.
Okay.
But it's 8 inches tall and 6 inches at the widest. So it kind of is, that classic vase shape. It's $22. If you saw this in a great store, like I love to browse in Amber Interiors here in LA, I mean, any of your kind of like fun decor shops in your local town, it would be a lot more money. It looks really good. So I can suggest that. Similar material, a tissue box cover. You know how we love a tissue box cover. So that's $19.99. And then I had referenced this bowl. It has a very loose scallop, so not sort of preppy scallop. It's just kind of a little wavier. It's kind of a bowl tray thing. Like what did you call a coupe? You mentioned a couple of weeks ago what I was calling a plole. So it's kind of like a woven plole coupe, and that's $13.99. It's 8.5 inches tall. And then the most expensive thing on my list is this scalloped rattan mirror from that company that we don't know if they're actually a company or they're just made up by Jeff Bezos, Kate and Laurel.
Yes.
But they have good stuff. We don't know if they're actual. We doubt they're actual women, but they're, they're not Serena and Lily, but they're Amazon wannabes.
There's some AI people somewhere that represent them.
Exactly. So it's a scalloped rattan mirror. And again, the scallop is not a tight scallop. It's kind of a loose scallop. And it comes in 32 inch or 26 inch. And it's, I'm going to say it's about 175 to 250, depending on the size you want to get. So that's a little bit more expensive. But we know, because we have purchased and we have talked about these Kate and Laurel products, this line that Amazon has for a while. So the quality's good. You do spend a little bit more for their stuff, but the quality is good.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And I just love rattan. So I'm going to be looking at all of your links.
So what are we defining today?
We are defining cupola. And a cupola is a small dome-like structure, I know you know what it is, that protrudes from the top of a building. These structures were originally used as a lookout or to provide air and ventilation to the building below, and they were originally found in Islamic architecture. They were a precursor to the dome, which spread across Europe and, of course, became a creative status symbol. Today, they are mostly used to add visual interest to an otherwise plain roof. And I'm out here in farm country, ranch country, whatever you want to call it, here in rural Texas. And there's a lot of beautiful barns with beautiful cupolas on them. So I see these all the time. And then I look at my sad barn, my cupola-less barn. So I've been really thinking I really need to add one of these to my barn. So
now, are they always rounded?
Well, no, a lot of times I see them, they're square.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Oh, you have one? Oh, okay. Now that's it. I am going to have one now.
Well, mine was not originally here in 1886 when the house was built. The gentleman who lived here before built the back house, what she used as a car mechanics shop and collecting all sorts of oddities. And now we use it for outdoor family room and gym and all of that. But he built it and he made it look like the house. So it really does look like it was part of it. And there's a cupola on the pitched roof of what would be the garage if it wasn't made into a gym. And it has the louvered slats, and then like it has a weather vane on top of it.
Yes, I mean, I'm just wondering, I guess you're going to have to get a crane to get it up there.
Well, yeah, roofers might do it.
Yeah, I'm not getting up there.
I think you could do it without a crane.
Okay, I'll have to see. Well, these are kind of big because the barns are big. So they're not just like 3 feet.
Balance and scale, also important.
Exactly. What is your crush?
So my crush is another podcast interview with who Peter calls my guru, Dr. Stacy Sims, who I absolutely love. I've talked to you all about her before. Her fantastic book, Next Level. I highly recommend it to everyone. I was just talking to a friend the other day, or a new friend, and so I didn't know too much about her, and somehow working out came up, and she was like, oh, well, I read this book, Next Level. I was like, oh, okay, dude, I know we're going to be really good friends. Okay. She loves it. I love it. And Stacy Sims is so knowledgeable. And she's the woman who did a TED Talk and became very famous, even though she'd been plodding away at doing all this research for years and years and years. But, a tagline can get you somewhere. And she said, women are not little men. And that's absolutely true, as we all know. And so then they shouldn't be treated like that by the medical community or the research community, right? And research and testing has to be done on women and how it's going to affect women. So a lot of the things you might be doing for exercise and nutrition and things like that, you're getting the information based on trials that were done on men. And we're very different, ladies. Yeah. I'm sure there's some lovely men listening as well. So you guys keep going. You probably got all the research you need out there. But if you want to get Stacy Sims' point of view, get her book, or you can listen to her on a number of podcasts. But there's a recent good interview on Mel Robbins with her. So I will link that in the show notes.
Well, my crush is consistent with our topic today. So do you remember the rattan pagodas we talked about from Mrs. Alice?
Yes, and I was thinking about them when I was prepping.
Yeah, but I didn't get those.
Damn, I didn't either. So I wish one of us would.
Well, if you've ever checked, they're pretty expensive.
They are.
So I found something that looks almost exactly the same.
A knockoff.
A knockoff on Etsy, and it was half the price.
Oh, well, I like that it's on Etsy.
Right, half the price, about the same size. Now, these are slightly on the yellow side, but they are really pretty and just beautiful on my table. So I'm very happy I got them. I got a set of 2. They come in a set of 2. And I might add just a little bit of wood stain to them to kind of change the stain just slightly. Kind of more to fit those rattan plate chargers that we both have that we like. So I might make it a little bit darker. But I'm a little concerned about, I don't know, I've never stained rattan, so I'm going to have to figure out how to best do that.
Yeah, you might have to dip it.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, because how are you going to get in all the little
right.
weaving parts of it, right?
Oh, that's a good point. But anyway, it is beautiful even as it is.
You could spray paint it. Maybe spray paint it a beautiful blue.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Oh, girl.
Okay. And please tell us you're using the battery-operated candles.
Yes, okay,
I am. Good girl. Yes,
I got some on Amazon. I'll include the link because these got some of the highest ratings, and they have a little different kind of the flame is kind of a little more interesting a little more realistic than some of them.
Okay, yeah, because some of those just are so bad. So much fun today. I love talking texture. So thanks so much for hanging out with us. And remember, we are here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time.